Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, it is time to get worried. It's time to get concerned. Our series continues on three concerns about each position. I just want to get on the record. I'm fine. I think
Hmm?
everything's fine. I don't think there's any reason that anyone needs to be stressed out. But Tony's a little bit of a worrier, so Tony has concerns. So we're all going to get together and we're all going to have a nice time, and we're going to tell Tony it's okay. It will probably be okay.
It won't be okay, Tom. That's why we're doing this. I just want people to know that the sky is not only falling, it has falling, and you are trapped underneath it, just so you know.
Mm.
Yes, we are now talking about the three concerns I have for the running back position. And I'm sure other the people out there will share my concerns as they always do. Now, Tom, these are mine, not necessarily yours, so you don't have to take ownership of any of them. That's fine. You can, shush me away as you are wont to do. But here's one. All right. Are there any? Are there enough home run hitters? Are there any home run hitters on this in this Ohio State running back room? And I say that with interestingly enough, Tom, Bo Jackson led the Big Ten in 10-yard carries of 10 or more yards this past year with 36. He tied with Nebraska's Emmett Johnson and Rutgers' Antoine Raymond. Only 6 of those went beyond 20 yards. Now, he did finish with 350-plus yarders, but you look at, he's not the only guy. Isaiah West is out there, and he had one rush of 30 yards, nothing beyond that, just 2 rushes of 20 yards. Jacoby Jackson coming in, we'll see. But one of the things that Ohio State has been missing is that Travion Henderson ability to go 75 yards at any point. I'm not sure they have that. You can maybe point at Legend Bay, but do you expect him to be that guy in 2026? I don't. So this is one of my concerns. It's not my biggest concern, but it's one of them.
And I think this is a legitimate concern or criticism or whatever, however you want to sort of file this, where they don't have a Travion Henderson. Now, there have been a lot of years where Ohio State has not had a Travion Henderson and has had, perfectly reasonable seasons. But if you go back over the years, 2024, they win the national championship. Yes, they do have a Travion Henderson. His name is Travion Henderson. 2014, they win the national championship. They have a, breakaway home run hitter back in Ezekiel Elliott. 2002, they have a pretty good breakaway running back in terms of Maurice Clarett. This is something where you don't have it every year, but when you have it and you can surround that guy with talent, it really does. It is kind of a little bit of an easy button for the offense that you can, you can hit some big plays through the air, but you can also just give it to Travion Henderson and he will just run past everyone on the Oregon team for a touchdown in the Rose Bowl, or you'll just throw him a little screen and he'll go 75 yards against Texas in the Cotton Bowl. And I don't really see that guy on this team, but we'll see what Bo Jackson looks like with another year. Maybe he can get a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, whatever it is. There were plenty of times where it looked like Bo Jackson was one tackle away from
Mm-hmm.
breaking it and didn't break it. And is that something that can be taught? That just a little more balance, just a little more strength, just a little more whatever it is, a little more je ne sais quoi, and you're off to the races, and you're taking those 10-15 yard runs and turning them into 60-yard runs, because we've seen him break some of them, but
Mm-hmm.
not as many as you probably would have hoped. So I think there's a possibility that the answer is still in that room, but it would, until you see it, you haven't really seen it.
And the inability to break tackles, or the times that they were tackled when it's like, gosh, boy, probably shouldn't have been. I think that's maybe an interlude. It's not my number 2 concern. It was, but I kind of want to bridge this with the short yardage concern of, is there somebody here that can pick up 2 yards or can pick up 2 yards on 3rd and 1, that has that ability, that just has that nose, that they can pick those 3 feet up when they absolutely have to have them. And now a lot of that's on the offensive line as well. And a lot of that is, if you had a quarterback that would pull the ball, that was able to do that, there'd maybe be a little bit easier for the running back. But I think the ability to break tackles was missing. It got better last year, and I think the ability to break tackles. We're not even just talking the open field stuff, which is a couple of those would have gone the distance if you just. How was that one guy able to tackle you? But also that initial guy at the line of scrimmage and being able to go through him, and you don't have to keep running. You just have to be able to go forward and land forward. So I'm going to bridge those into my number 2 concern is just, I guess, maybe the necessary physicality to get what you need.
Yeah, and that's another one where second year true freshman running back, the true freshman running backs always develop into bigger and stronger. And I mean, that's just, you almost never see a guy who has his best college season as a freshman, unless it's someone who's hurt or has the Maurice Clarett career. There's just, it really, true freshman running backs, if they stay healthy, generally turn into better, stronger, faster, bigger running backs later in their career. So you would assume there's going to be a little bit of that just sort of by the nature of the position. And Bo Jackson, I think, could turn into that kind of a guy. Isaiah West, I'm really intrigued by because he missed so much time last year and still turned into a pretty decent player for them. Jacoby Jackson at Florida was developing into a pretty decent running back, and he got hurt. And so there's a little bit of uncertainty with what exactly you have there. But I think this may be one where, yeah, as you mentioned, the offensive line in a lot of the short yardage situations, if the offensive line is better, and I expect it to be better, then that probably helps a little bit. And you don't have a quarterback in Julian Sayin who is going to be a very big and active part of the short yardage run game necessarily. But you do have Tavian St. Clair on the roster, and I think they are going to be looking for ways to get him involved. And I don't know where he is right now. We have really not seen much of him at all. So I'm fascinated to see what he looks like in spring ball, but you want your big 6'4", 6'5", Will Howard size guy who can maybe push the pile a little bit and put his head down, but also be a threat to maybe just, not be Michael Vick, but be able to go get 7-8 yards off the edge on 3rd and 3. I think you may have that guy on the roster. It's just a matter of how much are they willing to work him in? How much, is he ready to be worked into that kind of a role yet? I think there are potential solutions on this roster with the running backs and the, sort of the natural progression of them physically throughout their careers. And I think there are sort of other sort of ancillary solutions here in terms of a better offensive line, in terms of a bigger, maybe a little bit more mobile backup quarterback in Tavian St. Clair. I think there are solutions and there are workarounds, but I don't have a super, super high degree of confidence in any individual one of those until I see it this spring on the field.
I think the talent is there, right? I like the players. I like, what Bo Jackson did last year. Not many have done what he did. Like the flashes that we got to see from Isaiah West. My third concern, Tom, is that everybody in this room this spring has dealt with injuries in the past year, except for maybe Legend Bay, and that's just because I'm not sure if he was hurt and not really sure if he's going to be in the room. But Bo Jackson is out for the spring. Isaiah West out for the spring due to ailments and injuries from the season. And Isaiah West missed last spring. He missed some time during the season. Turbo Rogers missed the entire season. Jacoby Jackson has missed time in his career. Favre Key was injured his senior year in high school for a while. So and Bo Jackson was dealt with injuries in high school. So I think there's a concern. Can they make it all season long with these running backs or with the top two, or is it going to be a case? Remember when Trevion Henderson and Mayan Williams would trade off who was injured each week, and that was no way to maintain a running game. So kudos to Bo Jackson for playing the entire season and making it through. Hopefully that's what happens every year, and if you just need to get cleaned up after the season each time, that's great. But I think there's there's a reason for concern here based on the body of history, if you will, pun intended.
Yes, the body of history or the history of bodies. Either way,
Yes.
it works in either direction there. I don't know how much of this to chalk up to individual players versus just, it's running backs and they're going to get the crap kicked out of them because that's just sort of the nature of the position. And, the oft-cited statistic about the average career of an NFL running back being, 2.5 or 3 years or whatever it is, that, you get beaten up pretty badly. In terms of individual injuries and individual players' injury histories, my general rule of thumb is if it's the same injury over and over again, that's more of a concern than just, oops, 1 year it's my hamstring, 1 year it's my knee, 1 year it's my shoulder, if it's the same thing, if it's the same nagging injury, that's more likely to recur rather than being sort of a one-off thing. If it's, one time a guy fell on me that's, from the side, and one time I landed weird on this. And I don't think there's a ton of really recurring injuries in that running back room. Sometimes you're just going to get banged up because you're running into big people who are moving very fast at you with malice in their hearts. That's going to happen sometime. You're going to have running backs get hurt. I don't think I look at this necessarily as this is a running back room that can't stay healthy. It's a running back room that has had difficulty staying healthy at times in the past. But if you can work in 3 guys and have them, if you can go into the season with Bo Jackson and Isaiah West healthy, which is not a given right now, they're both missing spring ball. If you can go into the season with Jacoby Jackson healthy, if you can find a role for Legend Bay, and we haven't talked about him a lot on this show just because I really don't know what to expect there. He has not played a lot of running back. I don't have any idea what he's going to look like when he gets out there. Turbo Rogers, we didn't see him last year, so what is he going to look like? How much can he contribute? What's that role going to be like? I don't know. Ask again later. We'll see what it looks like in the spring. I think this is something that is probably somewhat a concern for every team is, can you keep your running backs healthy? Just because of the demands of the position. It's a concern for Ohio State. Again, I think there are a lot of different ways to work around this potentially with different combinations of guys and trying to split carries up and lower the number of carries that these guys are taking. This is all why, one of the reasons why Ohio State has taken the approach they have in terms of not asking guys to take Quinshon Judkins at Ole Miss level numbers of carries and having guys try and take Quinshon Judkins at Ohio State level of carries, because that physical beating just takes such a toll over the course of the season. And it's not just, sometimes you're hurt and you miss time. It's also you are not as effective as you would be if you were closer to 100%. If you just shave 100 carries off of some of those annual totals, that makes a real difference. So I think they're going to come at this with some different potential creative solutions to try and find answers here. And I do think there are answers here, but again, let's see it. There's a lot that is going to be, I don't think any of these are insurmountable issues, but they've got to kind of go through and figure out how they want to approach and attack each one of them.
Yeah, and the reason for the surgeries here now is so that Isaiah West and Bo Jackson will be good for the spring or for the season. So they're doing everything they can to make sure they're good for the season. And the one thing that we have not yet seen under Carlos Loughlin is, well, now we've got to find a linebacker that can run the ball. Now we've got to find a receiver that can run the ball. He's been able to avoid that where you've got Xavier Johnson as your number one running back sharing snaps with Chip Trainum and things like that. So, and I think they've got enough guys in the room now that they won't have to do that either, which was sometimes an issue for Tony Alford. But so there you go. Just some thoughts on some concerns for that I have about the Ohio State running backs room. You may have others. If you've got some, go ahead and throw them in the comments and take a look at those and maybe revisit them down the road. So if you're watching, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. If you're listening, a 5-star rating and review is always welcome. And of course, you can continue finding us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.